a young scientist conducted a horrifying experiment on himself and became invisible. Let's find out how he took advantage of it and why all women were afraid of him. Scientist Sebastian Kane conducts experiments on laboratory rats. Unfortunately, not all of them end successfully. The man has developed an invisibility formula, but he can't create a serum to reverse the process. Suddenly, a brilliant idea strikes him, and he rushes to his computer. In the middle of the night, Sebastian calls his colleague Linda to boast that he has finally discovered the correct formula to return from the invisible state. He is eager to test it immediately. The man is very pleased with himself and dreams of winning a Nobel Prize. He arrives at his laboratory, where many test animals are held, including an invisible gorilla named Isabel. Sebastian's colleague, Matthew, tries the latest serum on it. The gorilla bites him and escapes from its cage. The man chases after the invisible gorilla and accidentally knocks Sebastian down. The scientist advises his partner to use a tranquilizer. Together, they search for Isabel and, using thermal goggles, manage to shoot her with tranquilizer darts. Sebastian wants to test his new serum on the gorilla. Linda arrives at the laboratory. It turns out that she and Sebastian used to date, but the woman broke up with him. The invisible gorilla is placed on an operating table. The scientists prepare for a new experiment. The protagonist personally injects his miraculous serum into Isabel and watches as it moves through her bloodstream. Gradually, the gorilla's internal organs become visible. At the same time, her pulse begins to race. Soon after, Isabel suffers cardiac arrest. The scientists use a defibrillator to bring her back to life. The gorilla starts breathing again and becomes more and more visible. Little by little, she looks like an ordinary hairy primate. The new serum truly works. Isabel is taken back to her cage. The scientists decide to celebrate their success and head to a restaurant. They laugh and drink, but for some reason, Sebastian feels sad. He has achieved his dream and now sees no new goals ahead of him. On top of that, Linda doesn't love him anymore. The thing is, the woman is now dating his best friend and colleague Matthew, but she's keeping their affair a secret from Sebastian. The main character returns to the lab and looks at the cage holding the invisible dog. He wonders what it would be like to be invisible himself. Soon, Sebastian gives a presentation on the subject of invisibility. However, he doesn't admit that he has managed to create a serum with a reversal effect, which greatly angers his investors. Sebastian explains that his experiment is not yet complete. He wants to conduct an experiment on a real human, and that human will be himself. Yes, it's incredibly dangerous, but he is a brilliant scientist and is willing to take the risk. The main character takes off his robe, lies down on the operating table, and injects himself with the invisibility serum. At first, nothing happens, but soon Sebastian begins to have spasms. He screams in agony and gradually becomes invisible. His pulse rises, and his heart can't handle the strain. Linda grabs the defibrillator again. We see Sebastian's internal organs. Soon, however, every one of his organs and every cell becomes invisible. The man completely disappears and loses consciousness from the shock. After 17 hours of sleep, Sebastian finally regains consciousness and demands that all the lights be turned off. The thing is, he can't close his eyes. More precisely, he can close them, but despite that, he still sees everything because his eyelids are transparent. Sebastian approaches the mirror. Nothing reflects in it. He entertains his colleagues by playing hide and seek with them. The only way to see the man is to use infrared radiation. To make other scientists' lives easier, the protagonist throws a blanket over himself. Thermal cameras are installed throughout the labs. Sarah is the first to take the night shift. Before long, she falls asleep, and Sebastian quietly slips out of his room. He sneaks into the lab and unbuttons Sarah's blouse. When the woman wakes up, she gets terrified. Back in the lab, a series of sensors are attached to Sebastian to monitor his vital signs. After removing them, he sneaks into the women's restroom to spy on another colleague, Janice. She ends up putting on thermal goggles just to make sure she's really alone. Meanwhile, Linda is studying a sample of Sebastian's blood. While she's distracted, Sebastian moves her can of Coke and then gives her a massage. The invisible man suggests they spend the night together, but Linda firmly refuses. 3 days later, Sebastian is injected with a serum designed to restore his visibility. At first, everything goes according to plan. and he gradually starts to reappear. But soon, the man begins to suffocate. His vital signs spike to critical levels, and he's on the verge of dying. In a panic, Sebastian breaks free, attacks his assistants, and lunges at Linda. The team manages to get the man back onto the operating table and resuscitate him. They succeed in bringing Sebastian back to life, but the reversion process fails. His body rapidly becomes invisible again. When Sebastian regains consciousness, Linda delivers devastating news. The new serum isn't compatible with human DNA. He nearly died, and he's still invisible. The team makes Sebastian a rubber face mask out of liquid latex, cutting holes for his eyes, nose, and mouth. Using a mirror, they show him the final result. Meanwhile, Linda and Matthew are working hard to find a formula to reverse the transformation, but their efforts are unsuccessful. Sebastian grows increasingly angry and argumentative. He's been invisible for 10 days now, and the scientists still haven't figured out a way to fix it. Tired of being cooped up, Sebastian sneaks out of the lab to get some fresh air. He drives around the city in his car, scaring children along the way. After that, Sebastian returns to his apartment. Looking out the window, the man notices his attractive neighbor and decides to take advantage of his invisibility. He removes all his clothes. Meanwhile, the unsuspecting neighbor is taking a shower when she hears the doorbell ring. She opens the door, but no one is there. Back in her bedroom, the girl notices her mirror moving on its own, and a moment later, something suddenly throws her onto the bed. Sebastian uses his invisibility to commit a terrible act. Linda arrives at Sebastian's apartment and finds his mask and clothes. She hurries back to the lab and hands out tranquilizer guns to the team. Sebastian soon returns to the lab voluntarily. He feels that the other scientists now treat him like a test subject. Another attempt to develop a visibility serum ends in failure. Sebastian lashes out at Linda in a furious outburst. In the evening, the main character sabotages the surveillance system and escapes from the lab once again. He sneaks into Linda's apartment and sees that Matthew has come to visit her. Sebastian finally discovers that his former lover is now romantically involved with his best friend. Furious, he smashes a window, returns to the lab, and attacks one of the test dogs. Later that night, Linda feels like someone is watching her and quickly flees her house. She rushes back to the lab, only to find that Sebastian is gone again. Linda informs everyone that she has no choice but to report the situation to the committee that funds their research. She and Matthew head to Dr. Kramer's private residence to tell him about the experiment on Sebastian. Meanwhile, the main character secretly eavesdrops on their conversation, lures Dr. Kramer to the pool, and pushes him into the water. The man struggles to surface, but Sebastian drags him to the bottom. The next day, Linda arrives at the lab and learns that Dr. Kramer drowned in his swimming pool. She and Matthew prepare to go to the committee, but for some reason, they no longer have access to the elevator, and they are unable to leave the building. Besides them, the lab is occupied by the assistants Sarah, Carter, Frank, and Janice. Frank, a true computer genius, quickly discovers that there is only one access code left, and it belongs to Sebastian. The scientists arm themselves with tranquilizer guns and thermal goggles and set out to hunt the troublesome invisible man. However, Sebastian is one step ahead and quickly attacks Janice. Soon after, Linda and other scientists find their colleague with no signs of life. They realize that the deranged Sebastian intends to eliminate them all. Matthew and Carter search for the invisible man, but he strikes first, injuring Carter and lunging at Matthew. The cunning scientist raises the temperature inside the building, making it impossible to detect him with thermal goggles. Matthew uses a fire extinguisher to track the invisible man's movements, but Sebastian manages to knock him down. Linda shows up just in time to save Matthew. Sarah and Frank find the wounded Carter. The woman runs to get a first aid kit, but Sebastian catches up with her. Thinking fast, she pours blood from several medical bags onto the floor, hoping to track the mad scientist's footsteps. One of the bags briefly reveals Sebastian's outline, but before Sarah can react, he tackles her to the floor and knocks her out. By the time the others find the girl, she's already dead. Then, Sebastian deals with Frank and seriously injures Matthew. He locks Linda and Matthew in one of the lab rooms and drastically lowers the temperature. After that, he puts on his clothes and his rubber mask, getting ready to escape. Before leaving, he creates a makeshift bomb out of nitroglycerin. intending to blow up the entire facility and cover up his crimes. Linda bandages Matthew's wound, but they are slowly freezing to death. Refusing to give up, Linda uses a powerful magnet to break out of the freezing room and pulls Matthew to safety. She catches up with Sebastian near the elevator and hits him with a makeshift flamethrower, setting him on fire. The man rips off his mask and clothes, becoming completely invisible. Linda activates the fire alarm so she can track his movements through the falling water, but the invisible man sneaks up behind her and knocks her down. Matthew, having recovered just in time, rushes to her aid. Sebastian keeps fighting, but misses a swing and crashes into an electrical panel, electrocuting himself. The shock briefly reveals parts of his body. Linda and Matthew believe he's dead. They spot the bomb in the lab and escape into the elevator shaft. Moments later, the bomb goes off. The explosion blasts the elevator car upward, nearly crushing Linda and Matthew. The elevator gets stuck in the shaft. As the characters try to climb past it, Sebastian suddenly leaps out from the cabin and grabs Linda. They fall on top of it. In the struggle, Linda manages to disconnect the cable, sending Sebastian into the fiery depths below. The invisible man is finally dead. Linda and Matthew are rescued from the burning lab by an ambulance crew.